So welcome to the first edition of the Pool of Life podcast with Christine Holt. We are just down at Otters Pool Prom in Liverpool, a beautiful spot. We're looking out across the River Mersey, across the North Wales and Scouse Mountain, as we affectionately call it here in Liverpool, Mulvama. And so it's with great privilege that I get to interview Christine today. She's someone that was recommended to me after one of her someone who we know mutually came to one of my Family Constellations workshops, and after she did the workshop, she was like, "You really need to speak to Christine." And so I got in touch, and yeah, it's just gone from there. And me and Christine have done a bit of work together, and she's someone who I really respect. There's not many people who you come across in life, especially where people who are practicing certain types of healing and therapeutic work, where you really feel a strong sense of presence and safety and wisdom, and Christine has got that in spades, I believe. And so it's been a real pleasure for me to be able to get you on the first edition of the podcast, Christine. So welcome.
Thanks, Neil. It's good to be here. Lovely to be in this spot, yeah. And I appreciate your opening. It's great to work with you.
Yeah, no, thank you. We had the intention of doing this in nature because I know we're both certain practitioners of certain things that, like, nature's an important part, but it's nice to be able to see it through the windscreen because of the wind and the seagulls.
Yeah, definitely.
But here we are. So, yeah, what I want to start with, Christine, is just get a sense of who you are, like what you do, like what's the work that you do, and then I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into your background, into your life, and how you sort of got to where you are right now with me doing the work that you do. So Christine, I don't want to say you're a shaman, you're many, many different things, but if you go to your website, it's Somatic Shamanism. So I'll hand over to you. I'm going to say very little. I'm going to let you speak.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I do something called Somatic Shamanism, and as soon as you say you do shamanism, a lot of people attribute you as a shaman, which I always feel uncomfortable about. I don't call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. I do work and it uses shamanism. So somatic shamanism basically is something that I've put together really from a lifetime of work and experience.
Okay.
It just naturally evolved, and the way I'd sort of sum it up, obviously it's a lot deeper than this and I'll talk more about it, but the way I'd sum it up is it's a therapeutic modality which uses really good body-centered psychotherapies alongside shamanic practices. So it's about working with the person on just a really holistic level. There's so much wisdom in the body, and it's great to use the body to uncover unconscious material. And then obviously there's conscious material that people know about. There's their biographies, their experiences, their wounds, their patterns of behavior, etc., that they want to work on. So we can access all of that through these great techniques. But then also for me, it's really important to also call in the external, really, in terms of the fact that there is more than just this material world. There is a whole spiritual dimension, if you like, and for tens of thousands of years, Indigenous people know how to tap into those realms and to bring back wisdom and healing and just aid the therapeutic process. So it's like a fusion, really, of really ancient healing techniques and great modern psychotherapeutic techniques, particularly body-centered therapies. So the work is very, very embodied. One of the things I do with people straight away really is, after we've talked about what they want to work on, I get them out of the head and into the body.
Yeah, of course.
And I do that using a lot of kind of the training that I've had in yoga and Taoism, which I'll talk about how obviously I went through life and found out all these practices. But I'll use those techniques to get people out of their head and into the body. And then once we're in the body, we start that dialogue, and then we start to just have this incredibly rich healing experience, which seems to emit from the client's own inner wisdom and inner guide, which is actually different to the traditional shamanic practitioner model, which is a lot of people are trained in shamanism, and then they do what's called journeying for a client. And then they tell the client what happened in the journey. And that always felt to me like a power over model.
Okay.
You know, like the shaman or the shamanic practitioner holds the cards in a way. You know, they say, oh, this happened, and then they put that seed into the person's mind, which might actually not make much sense to the person. So I was working like that for a few years, and then I realized that that's just too far removed from the person's own experience. And actually they've got their own whole set of wisdom within. And so what I do now is tap into that, and then and the work and the healing then just works so much better doing it that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying there, because it's like if you think about, like, say, traditional religion, it's interesting. I was just reading something just before the TNU where traditionally it's about giving your power over to someone else for the healing process, like you're sort of touching on there, whereas you say all the wisdom and all the powers within us, and being able to facilitate that within someone is really empowering for that individual.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just get loads of feedback on that. You know, I get a lot of people who've been through therapy for years, and they come to me and they realize that this work is much deeper.
Yeah.
And again, it's much more led by them. They don't, because we're going inward and we're picking up on unconscious material in the body and using shamanic practices to really get deep, they don't realize that that they have that wisdom until we get into the process. And so it's really empowering for people, really exciting. But for me, the most important thing is it does shift things, it heals, it changes, and it helps people to move through the issues that they're having, and bring them healing.
Powerful work.
Yeah, it really is.
So on that note, because it's because this is where I'd seen, like, say, traditional psychotherapies, talk therapies, what was missing was the wisdom of the body. And so, like, you know, meeting someone like yourself where you're integrating the two and much more. Like, I'd like to move on now about, like, your story, because, like, how have you gone from Christine, young girl, growing up in Liverpool, and all these adventures and all these experiences that you've had, to be here now, sitting with me in this chair, doing what you do? Because it's intriguing. Like, how does that even happen? You know, it's quite the journey. So I'm sure it's quite rich. So I'm curious what your influences and your teachers were, and where you've been.
Yeah, that's a big question. So I'll start. So I was born in Liverpool in 1969, youngest of 6. Born to working class parents. Dad was a lorry driver. So yeah, real traditional 1970s childhood, playing out a lot, no digital stuff, loads of time out in nature. My dad was, he did really well when he was younger, and he saved up a lot of money, and he got a house for cash in 1957. Wow. Yeah, with the money that he'd saved. You couldn't do that now. So by the time I came along, after a few years, when I was 3, we moved to a nice big house in Orrell Park in Walton. So big Victorian house, massive garden. I mean, it wasn't done up inside, like, it was a bit of a wreck, but basically the garden for me was everything as a kid, and I was always out in the garden with my dad. And I think that's important to say, because that just really influenced me in terms of nature and just the healing power of nature, just that big garden, you know, and those big trees that were around and stuff, and just being out there with my dad. So he loved it. When he first viewed the house, actually, he just looked at the garden and he didn't even look inside, and he said, I'll take it because of the garden. So I think my dad influenced me a lot when I was a kid. But the other thing that was going on when I was a kid was, you know, I was born into a family of already 7 people, mum, dad, 5 older siblings. A lot of dynamics going on. By the time I was very young, there was a lot of conflict in the family. You know, 2 older brothers coming up to teenager, having, you know, issues with my dad, and there was times when, you know, there was violence in the house and stuff like that. So I don't want to obviously go into it because my siblings are still alive and my mum's still alive, but there was trauma when I was little, you know, and I didn't feel particularly safe within the family unit. And one of the reasons I like to play out a lot or get out into the garden was because of those really complex dynamics that were going on. And yeah, I mean, you know, it started to become apparent even when I was very little. I had trouble sleeping and I was on hyper alert because of all this sort of stuff going on. So I think that was obviously important, because a lot of us who do healing work, you know, have had our issues and had our wound and stuff like that. So that was pretty much what was going on for me. Then I've been thinking about this recently. I had a really sort of moment in my early teenage years, whereby when I was 13, my mum and dad finally split up. They'd not been talking for years really in the house. It was quite a bit of a battlefield really. So they finally split up and I stayed with my dad and my mum left. And
it's just unusual.
Yeah. I think my mum's version is she took us with her, but then I wanted to go back to my dad. I'm a little bit confused by the whole thing, and it was probably as a result of quite a lot of trauma around at the time. But I was close to my dad and I wanted to stay with my dad, and all the others wanted to stay with mum.
So it was only you?
Well, my mum asked my other sister to stay. So me and our Carol stayed with my dad. But what was really interesting at that time, I couldn't cope, I don't think. I probably had a bit of a breakdown, and I was going to school. I was in Catholic convent school, Broughton Hall at the time. And my 2 best friends will attest to this. I was just crying a lot. I couldn't cope. And I remember sitting in the head nun's office just sobbing, and she just sat with me and said nothing and just sat with me and just let me cry and cry and cry. And that was just really significant for me, because I think it was probably years of trauma coming out in those tears, and the first time just being held safely by someone, and probably quite a deeply religious, spiritual woman, you know. Sister Mary Agnes, her name was. She was an older woman. She was probably in her 50s, 60s. And she just held a space for me. And that was a really profound moment for me looking back, because I think what I do now is, you know, first and foremost with a client, you just hold space for them to be themselves. And if that means a lot of tears or just, you know, a full-on sort of breakdown or whatever, just to be there with someone and allow that stuff to move through them is really powerful. So I think I'm just going to take some water. I think that was
pivotal moment.
A real pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Something that I always remember. And then again, I'll just move through the difficult teenage years. And in the end, I ran away from my dad at 15. And then I went to live with my mum, and then my mum kicked me out at 17. And, you know, I was quite the the rebel by this point.
Okay.
Just hanging around the streets and getting up to all kinds, basically.
Was there any spiritual inclinations at
Yeah.
this? Was there any like little signs of maybe there was something deeper wanting to emerge?
Well, I think what it was there was a lot of drinking and recreational stuff going on, recreational drugs, and I definitely had some very powerful peak experiences through particular substances that I was taking. So I was like intrigued by that. I could mention all the drugs, but it's just usual stuff, 1980s kids, you know. I know a lot of people didn't do drugs, but for me, it's just, you know, we just did.
But there was a big culture of it, you know, all the way through the late 80s and all the way through the 90s and 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there was a lot of drugs in the city. Recreational, the big clubbing scene, you know, there was dance music.
Well, that's it. That 1988 Summer of Love, when ecstasy hit the scene, I was 17, 18, so I was banging to it all.
Yeah. But, you know, got to remember that ecstasy as a drug was created for certain, well, it was, I'm sure it was created for MDMA for therapeutic reasons.
It was, absolutely.
And then obviously now it's come almost full circle where you've got MDMA assisted psychotherapy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress.
Well, that was something I did in my 40s for many years with a group of psychotherapists. We did a lot of MDMA therapy together.
Wow.
It was just powerful.
I like that one. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So you're now moving into from your teenage years, you're taking recreational drugs. I mean, you could argue that's going to open you up, and then, you know, you're going into your 20s. And then did you move down to London?
I did. I went to London when I was 19, just for a summer.
Never came back?
Never came back. Well, for 18 years, didn't come back till I was 36, 37. So just when I first moved to London, I was just working in bars and pubs and clubs and just enjoying myself, really. Drinking and, you know, doing different whatever. But then also after I ended up running this bar I ended up going out with a nightclub owner, and we ran this bar together in southeast London. And then after a couple of years of that, I thought I better go back to university, because I did get a place in Bristol to go to university, but I fell in love with him, so I jibbed it.
The things you do for love, eh?
I know. And then I got a place at University College London to do a degree in Scandinavian Studies for 4 years. So I did that. But while I was doing that, I was also a youth worker in southeast London. So I worked on a lot of council estates and in sort of Greenwich and Lewisham, all around that area.
Did you do any in Peckham or anywhere around there?
I was living sort of New Cross End, but yeah, Peckham was the next sort of place up. But
sort of, that borough.
Yeah. It was more sort of Greenwich and Lewisham, a little bit further out. Yeah. So I was doing loads of youth work, and I loved that. And I think, you know, what I got from that nun all them years ago, I started to give to those kids. I was a really good youth worker, even though I was quite young, in my early 20s. And I knew, because of everything I'd been to, how to hold space for kids and just to be with them. And that was definitely a big part of my journey, really. I was a youth worker for 15 years in London. I ended up running quite a lot of facilities. I was a senior manager and stuff like that. But
what changed?
Well, just while I was doing youth work, I was also still very much interested in my own healing, because I had a lot of stuff to heal. You know, I had that childhood. There was a lot of stuff playing out in my relationships that I was having, and just in terms of my own ability to look after myself, particularly on an emotional level and stuff like that. So I was still doing my healing. So the other part in my 20s, which was really important for me, was I got into the co-counselling community, re-evaluation counselling. So that is a place where you can learn. It used to be a one-day workshop. You'd do a fundamentals class, and then you'd learn to counsel people, hold space for them, and then you'd swap and they would hold space for you. And again, that was a continuation of that having a space, a completely unjudgmental space where you could just be and you could talk about your stuff, and people would encourage you to what we call discharge. I don't know if you know about re-evaluation counselling, but it's about encouraging you to cry or to shake, or to, you know, those somatic ways of shaking out the trauma in a way. Sometimes it can be yawning or laughing. These are things that we call sort of discharging that emotional stuff on a physical level.
So it's a movement of an energy of something, yeah,
exactly,
emotion,
exactly. So it's not like typical psychotherapy. It's not analytical stuff. It's just basically tell me a story, shake, cry, let it come, let the feeling come, let it move through you. So that was massive for me in terms of a foundation for the work I do now as well.
Yeah, okay.
Each of them are like building blocks for what I've done, you know. And that was really helpful for me, really powerful. In my second year of my degree, I went to Stockholm for a year to learn the Stockholm University, to learn the language and to live in Sweden for a year. And I actually found the re-evaluation community in Sweden as well.
You've reconnected back into that community there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd do co-counselling with Swedes in Swedish. So I'd either you know, discharge and talk in Swedish, and I'd listen to them in their language as well. So that was nice to be able to do this re-evaluation counselling, this co-counselling with people in a different country and with a different language and stuff. And it really helped me Swedish skills. So I used to be fluent, but I'm not now.
Well, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah,
like the old saying goes.
Yeah. So that was sort of my 20s. Came back and carried on doing youth work, and then got a bit tired of youth work. Was going out with another fella who was quite adventurous, and we decided that we'd take a year out and go off for a year.
Traveling?
Yeah. So we were originally going to go to Australia, but in the end we went around Southeast Asia, which was brilliant and amazing, and another massive big part of my story. We travelled all around Malaysia and all the islands.
Thailand?
We ended up in Thailand, yeah, and we ended up in the north in Chiang Mai for 8 months. Have you
8
been
months
there?
in Chiang Mai?
8 months, yeah.
Yeah, I've been up to Chiang Mai, but not for 8 months.
Yeah,
I was there for a couple of weeks, and then went up to Pai, and then went up to Mai Hong Son on the border there with Myanmar, but like not for the length of time that you did. But a lot of very spiritual up there.
Very, very, yeah.
Buddhist,
so I really started to learn a lot of stuff around Buddhism, Taoism. I had a couple of amazing experiences whereby I'd had this book since I first went to London. The nightclub owner guy, he had this book, and it was by a guy called Daniel Reed, and the book was The Tao of Health, Sex and Longevity. And I read that book when I was about 19, and it really resonated with me. It was just one of those seminal books in my life. When I went to Thailand, I thought, I'm going to take that book with me, and I'm really going to do the practices because I'll have time for a year. You know, we saved up money, take time out for a year. So I took the book with me. I was sitting in Chiang Mai. I was reading the book in one of the coffee shops, and this bloke comes up to me. This is quite amazing, really. This bloke comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, Daniel Reed." I said, "Yeah, do you know this book? It's brilliant, isn't it?" And he went, "Daniel's a friend of mine. He only lives around the corner."
Shut up.
I was like, yeah, I was.
Of course he does. Yeah.
I was like, no way. And he went, "Come and I'll introduce you to him."
She's quite a well-known author. I mean, the books.
Yeah. Daniel Reed was, he was like on the hippie trail in the 60s, and he went to Southeast Asia and China and all that. And he learned and studied Taoism, and he married a Chinese woman, and he's written a number of books on Taoism. He's a really well-respected author. He must be in his 70s now, but when I met him, I think he was in his late 40s.
So you got to meet him personally at his house?
Yeah. Well, not only that, we just basically started studying with him for the next 8 months. Just going there.
Directly?
Yeah. Just going there every day.
Remarkable.
Yeah. And my fella at the time was going there like every morning to train with him. but we just learnt loads off him. He took me through my first fasts, like 7-day fasts. That was when I didn't start off doing a 1 or 2 day fast. I went into a 7-day fast where there was no food whatsoever, just water and wheatgrass and, you know, nothing else. Just, yeah, it was amazing.
On that particular note, I want to ask you now, because we're still in the flow with this particular life part, of the part of your life story, but like the fasting part, I'd like to touch on that later, because, you know, why is fasting important? And why is Daniel really talking about fasting? Like, what's the benefits? But we'll part that one. So you're still in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. I mean, just very, very briefly, it's great for the physical health, but it's also incredible for your spiritual practice.
Why?
Because when there's no time at all when our body is quiet, because our digestion, our alimentary canal is always working.
We're always putting food in a general sense.
Or even if we haven't put food in for 8 hours, the stuff at the bottom is still being digested and coming out.
Yeah.
So when you don't eat for 7 days, the body becomes still. And you can imagine how powerful that is when you're meditating. Nothing's happening. So everything gets a chance to rest and recuperate and regenerate. And you can have really powerful meditations and experiences when the body's still. And all sorts of things as well. It just empties the body of all the lots and lots of wounds and emotional pain, because as the fasting process is happening, the cells are purging out stuff. And as we know, or as some of us know, a lot of our wounds and emotional issues are actually held in the cells of the body and the tissues.
So if you fast for a particular period of time, you start to move into that phase where, because there's nothing coming into the body, the cells will actually start to expel toxins.
Totally.
Emotions. Yeah. Wow, okay.
Yeah. So I could talk to you for a week about fasting, but so training with him, but also we met a student of Hyun Moon Kim, who was a disciple of a Taoist master who lived in the mountains in Taiwan, I think, in the 40s, 50s, and he came down the 60s, and he trained up 12 masters, and then I met the pupil of one of those masters, and she came to we called it a condo apartment, every morning at 6:30, and would train me every morning in, it's called Sundu Taoist practices. So I was studying Taoism with Daniel, and I was studying Taoism with this master woman as well.
Wow.
She was incredible.
Rich.
Yeah. I mean the practices and the books I was reading, and I immersed myself. I didn't have to go to work, so I had the luxury of absolutely immersing myself in these practices. And I just had these crazy experiences that I don't really talk about, because people would be like, nah, I don't believe you.
Like, well, I don't want to call them spiritual, but you'd have like extrasensory experiences, like what higher states of consciousness, like what,
yeah.
But I'll go into the respectful of your privacy.
Yeah.
But like, what could you say it was?
Well, some of these Taoist masters can literally look at an object and pick it up with the intention. It gets that high level. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So when you practice to such a level, then, you know, I suppose a little bit like, you know, the low yogis levitating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Things can happen, or you can you can get into a particular state of consciousness whereby things can happen that you wouldn't necessarily believe would be possible.
Yeah. I mean, I believe. I mean, I've read a lot of stories, read a lot of things, so I'm very much a believer. There's no way I'll be able to move a stone with my hand from 10 meters away, but it's I've read a lot about it.
Yeah.
But you've experienced that firsthand?
Kind of things, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So after that?
So then I came back after a year, and I was kind of headhunted for this high position in Greenwich, doing leading a team of youth and community workers in the Greenwich Peninsula. So I really got into that and got into senior management and training people and training staff, and that was all great and wonderful, and it was really interesting stuff, and I did that for a few years. And then, but always alongside doing my own practices, you know, what had happened in Thailand just blew my mind out of all proportion. So once that sort of stuff happens, you can't just go back to day-to-day living.
There's no going back.
Yeah, there's not. So even though you have to go back to day-to-day living, you've still also got your own practices and your own life that's running parallel to that. So that was always going on for me. And then, and I was always, you know, I did love all of that work, and I learnt loads of stuff around that, but there was always this constant pull back to esoteric work in a way, different practices, different experiences and stuff like that. And then around about 2006, I think, I just came across this this advert that said, "Do you want to heal from your blueprint level?" And I just remember thinking, yeah, I do, because I've still got stuff from that frigging childhood that, you know, is
still playing out.
Particularly in my relationships. I was in this pattern of just changing relationships every 2 years. Literally, just it was a very and I kind of figured it out in my late 40s. I eventually found out where it was, and it was related to some stuff that went on with my mum and some stuff that went on with my dad. But you know, I knew there was still a lot of stuff there. There's always a lot of stuff there to work on. So I went off to Holland for 5 days, and again, just started training in shamanism then. And this was this was with a guy called Alberto Violdo, who's written a lot of books.
Yeah, he's a very well-known guy. Yeah.
So he studied with the shamans in Peru, and in the 70s, and he had this worldwide school. So there was a lot of courses going on in Europe. So I got on the training, which is the medicine wheel training. It's about 2 to 3 years. So I got on that. I went to the first one, and literally on the second day I had this mad experience, which again just blew me away. But I wasn't well. There was something going on with me, and we were taught to do what's called the illumination process, which is a kind of unwinding the chakras and taking out certain energy and then putting in different energy. So it was kind of like hands-on energetic practice. And there were people on the floor, and they were kind of shaking a little bit, and you know, some of them were moaning and groaning. And it was funny because there was 40 people on this course, and there was one other Scouser, and me and him gravitated to each other, obviously.
As Scousers do.
So we were working together, and me and him were taking the piss, as Scousers do. And I was just like, oh, look at the state of them all putting it on. What a load. Do you know what I mean? Just like, I was like, there's no way.
Just judging away.
Yeah, just totally judging away. When I said, when I'm lying down, I won't be moving, nothing will be happening. Anyway, when I lay down and he started unwinding my chakras and taking stuff out, well, my body flipped out like The Exorcist. It was just like, I had this experience where I was almost like flipping on the ground and sitting up and screaming this stuff out. And all the shamans came and sort of pinned me down. They put this massive crystal in my hand, and I felt this strong pain start to move through my body. And then they pulled it down my left arm and into the crystal, and they whipped the crystal away from me. And then one of them ran out with the crystal, and there was just mayhem. It's just like
causing trouble wherever you go, eh, Christine?
And there's me sort of saying, I'll be quiet. And I was just like the loudest one. But
what happened?
Well, what we'd call that in shamanism, which I didn't know at the time because it was literally the second day of the course, it's an extraction. Taken out. And so in terms of shamanism, you can extract energies or entities that have got into the system. And I found out months later what that actual entity was. Again, I won't go into that because it's a bit private, but it was a really powerful experience. And from that moment, the illness that I had just literally disappeared. It just dissipated straight away.
So what was the learning there? And because like someone listening to this who maybe is very much influenced by a Western medical system and a Western medical tradition, and here's you talking about an illness that you've had where there's been an extraction using certain non-Western means, you know, and I know there'll be Indigenous traditions who'd use this quite widely, that when it's been extracted energetically with a crystal that's being put in the crystal being taken with it, it started to heal. What's that about, you know? I mean, I'm saying this because I believe it, but like, it's, how can you reconcile that?
Yeah, well, do you know, at the time I couldn't. But what I could reconcile was that my illness shifted from that moment on. You know, I was like skeptical before I went, and then I was intrigued afterwards, because I was like, I don't understand this. And I'm sure many of the listeners would be like, I don't understand it either. But one of the things about shamanism is you don't need a leap of faith. You don't need to believe. You do practices, and if they have an effect, there's your evidence. And for me, that's quite scientific.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a rationality to it.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'll try this, and then if it makes a difference and if it changes things, then obviously then there's something in that, really. I mean, I needed another 2 or 3 years experience of the whole of the training to understand what it was all about, really. But essentially that is like, you know, if we've got, I mean, I'll just try and bring it down to a level whereby just everyday lay people would understand. You know, if you walk into a room and there are people in there who are dodgy, a lot of us pick that up, don't we?
Yeah.
You know?
Sense it.
Yeah, we sense it. And if some bad intention is coming towards you, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck might go up. You might start, particularly in Liverpool, you know, there's a lot of us who are very streetwise and pick up on stuff like that. I think maybe it'd be best for me to not be in this room with these people or hang around with these people or whatever. I mean, I had quite a few experiences like that when I was first in London. And I remember my dad saying to me, you don't want to hang around with people like that, you know, just like shady people who've got stuff, and you can feel it, you know. So that's where we can feel energy. You know. And in terms of energies being extracted from you, you can have, if someone hates you for long enough, that can actually impact on your physical well-being. And anyone who's been in an intimate relationship which is abusive will know what I mean by that, you know. You feel
there's residue.
Yeah. You can get ill, can't you?
Yeah.
You know, and if you're living with someone and there's a lot of disharmony in that relationship and potentially abuse or violence or whatever, then you can get sick.
Yeah.
And that's what shamans kind of know about, really. That it's not just about the medical model, which is something's gone wrong and you can fix it with pills or you can fix it with operations. We are constantly walking in, you know, I mean, if you just think about the horrors that are going on now in the world, you know, if you think about Ukraine or Palestine, and, you know, if you're in those places, you're not, your body, your soul, your energy, your mind, your spirit is not going to thrive, you know, when you're constantly in fear or hungry, you know, things are going to start to go wrong in the body and in the mind. And
manifestly, like a lot of children, you'll become adults from those spaces. In Bert Hellinger, who developed Family Constellations, he said if you're born into war, you're instantly traumatized. It's
absolutely it's in the fabric.
Because it's in the fabric.
Yeah, it's in the fabric of your world. And this is what shamanism is really good at, and what maybe the Western medical model, and I'm not the type of person who bashes the Western medical model, because I think it's genius.
It's got its place.
Yeah, in loads of ways. And, you know, I'm not averse to using it now and again when I need to. But there's also this other incredible way of healing that has been around for tens of thousands of years. And once you start studying Indigenous people and different tribal people, and you hear the same things coming from them, from whether it's the Inuit or whether it's the Native Americans or the Aboriginals in Australia, there's a lot of crossover in what they're talking about and what they do, and the ceremonies that they do, and the rituals that they do, and the energetic healing that they do. And I'm fascinated by that, because I think we've got a really strong, rich tradition of healing that goes back so long. And I think that modern people have disconnected from that, or lost that. We've lost that, that oral tradition from our ancestors, and we've lost it. And now I think there's a real sense of wanting to get that back and find out more about it.
It does feel like there's a renaissance. I got an interview, it's interestingly, 3 days ago by a leadership coach in New Zealand, and she's Scottish, and we got into a big discussion around, like, she's seen in her world, and I'm seeing it a lot, where you hear this word being used quite a lot now, reclamation. It's like a remembering of, like, our traditional ways of being. And, like, from these lands, like, there's a strong Celtic tradition that was lost when the Romans invaded. But there's almost like I believe, and I don't know what your view on this is, that, whether you're taking psychedelics or you're spending time on the land, you're taking yourself out, you're doing pilgrimage, you're fasting, with intention, you can call on, like, ancestors or guides in some way that are on another plane that can inform us of those old ways.
Absolutely.
I don't know what your view is on that.
Definitely.
That's the conclusion that I'm coming to now, because I'm seeing how I'm developing. What's your view on that?
I mean, you're right, and I know me and you have both got Irish ancestry, and obviously the Irish, they didn't have the Roman invasion, so we know there's a great online, there's a really good resource with a lot of old oral histories and stuff like that, where there's older people talking maybe like 50, 60 years ago, and they're talking about some of the ancestors' stories that are coming down from the famine. So there's a lot in the Irish tradition about working with energies, and working with the land, and working with ancestors, and just some really, really shamanic stuff. And there's quite a few Irish people who are definitely reviving that Irish tradition. I think they've got more, this is a bit of a sweeping statement, but I get a sense that they've got more of the stories, traditions that still come down that maybe the British have. But then saying that, I mean, like I said, me and you, I mean, even though we live in England and we were born sort of in Liverpool, our blood is Irish, really. A lot of our blood. And I know both me and you have had experiences of being able to tune into the lives and experiences of our ancestors, and have information passed to us, wisdom passed to us from that. And also the other thing that's great, particularly with family constellation work, what you do is, the ancestors are a huge resource for us.
Huge.
Yeah. And people don't realise that. If we just call them in, and if you're dealing with something and you just have them there, you can, and again, this might be a bit of a long stretch for people who are new to this work, you can have such strength in something that you're doing, or such support and such wisdom and such guidance that can come through. And actually, I've just done some training in family constellation with a TA therapist.
In Manchester, you were doing
that,
wasn't you?
Yeah. And she was talking about this. They are a huge resource for us. And Indigenous people will tell you this all the time.
It's inherent. You cannot separate ancestral worship and connection from an Indigenous tradition. It's not separate.
Yeah.
It's in totally inclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Parry does these tribal programs, doesn't he?
I've seen some of them.
And there was a house there, this sort of round house, and on the top there was another level that was round, and he said to them, "What's that level for?" And they said, "That's where the ancestors live." This is so lovely.
Isn't it?
And another lovely story about some Siberian people, that there's a tradition that when you go into the house, the first thing that you say is, "Are the old people home?" and they're talking about the ancestors, and they say yes, and they say, well, they take them over to a place where they're honoured, like a little altar or something, and they'll toast a shot of vodka to the ancestors before they even get into the conversation about today.
It's beautiful. You go to like a lot of Africa, you got the Mexican Day of the Dead. I mean, there's a Disney film called Coco, and I know it's a Disney film, but when you watch it, like, it really brings to life some of the themes around ancestral worship. Like, Vietnam's got a rich tradition. Like, you go into a Vietnamese house, traditional house, they've got photographs of all the, and a big shrine in the house. It's like, it's really important, and you do feel the strength. Like, you talked a couple of things before about, like, when you were in Chiang Mai, for example, where when you're doing certain practices, you can feel it. It's tangible, it's palpable. And then when you bring and ask your ancestors to come in, and I ask anybody who's listening to this to experiment with it. And I always talk about it in my Constellations Workshops. If you can feel it, just experiment with it, totally. And just test it, and you will feel the difference. It's remarkable.
Absolutely.
You feel like a strength.
Yeah.
You get more clear. Like, ideas pop into your head. It's like, wow, someone just popped into my life. Yeah, and oh, by the way, I've just been asking my ancestors for help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in that way, it is a massive resource that we just don't know about. And this is the thing.
Well, you do know.
Yeah.
You do know.
They do know. Yeah. And this is the thing about when I was talking before about the somatic therapeutic work that I do now, to bring in the shamanic elements, and to know that beyond this reality, there are also things that we can tune into and tap into for help and support. I mean, I was doing a one-to-one session with a client yesterday, young woman who doesn't know anything really about this sort of stuff, and we just went and did a bit of a kind of I suppose it was a bit like a guided meditation. But she ended up she really needed some rest and support, and she ended up in the arms of a bear, like bear, what we'd call in shamanism, bear medicine.
So this is in her imagination?
Yeah, I just got her to just like relax and close her eyes, and I took her through this little journey. And she was just getting like love and support, and you could just see her face changing. You could see all the stress that she'd come with at the beginning, just to become this wonderfully gentle, serene looking young woman. And at the end of getting all of this support from this bear, I just said to her, just ask her if it's got any advice or information for you. And when she came back, she said, do you know what? It told me this. And it was the most incredible piece of wisdom that you could imagine. And it was completely pertinent to her situation. And she just said to me, that's it. That's what I needed. And I didn't tell her that. I didn't journey for her and give her that information. She found it herself.
Come from her?
Yeah. Just by tapping into the resource of nature, of what we'd call spirit animals, the soul of that particular animal. She tapped into that wisdom, or that universal consciousness, or that archetype. Spiritual realm, that archetype. Yeah, so many different words for it. She tapped into that all by herself with just a little bit of guidance from me.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
Don't be like it.
Yeah.
You've held a strong space there for it.
Yeah.
All this wisdom, all this experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
That you've got.
But I love it because it's like, it proves to me again and again and again, anyone can access this. It doesn't have to be someone who's done this work forever. Like I said, she was a young woman.
Very little experience of anything.
Very little experience of anything like this, right. And she could access it.
It's experimenting, isn't it? It's like it's almost giving yourself permission and just trying it, because obviously we're in a general sense in the West, we're conditioned by society in a particular way to go to school, get educated, go to work, consume, and go back to work, and this we're not taught to tap into those deeper places.
Yeah,
it's not made aware of, so to give yourself that permission, or to be around other people as well who are doing it, finding people like yourself,
And, you know, I just couldn't live without that as well. You know, that's for me, that's the richness of life. All that other mundane stuff, you know, that's the stuff that can slowly kill you. If you just do that and you just don't have the, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people obviously who don't get this stuff at all, and they just live in that realm, and that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I wouldn't want to, you know, I'm not here to try and convince anyone anything else. I'm just giving my experience of the richness of my life, which is all around this practice that I've learned.
So on that point, because I'm just conscious of time, is that what you've shared with me is very rich, and I really appreciate how you've gone from, obviously it's a very, very, very high level. We could talk for weeks about the life experiences that you've had. But I'm thinking in a more practical sense, like, how can people find you, and what work do you do with people, just in a more practical sense? So like, if someone's listening, like, okay, this is really perking my interest, like, what do you offer? Like, what are your offerings? What's your service? You said one-to-ones. What else is that? Yeah,
so since COVID, my work's really taken off online. So I do the majority of my work is one-to-one, working with people. People can come with any issues that they struggle with, or even just to get an experience of it. Some people just contact me and say, I'd love to have a somatic shamanism experience. You know, can we do something? So I work at one-to-one with people, but I also train people in somatic shamanism.
Okay.
So I do a practitioner training, which is a 15-month long course.
Okay.
And that's like 12 months of teaching, and then 3 months of like case studies and a project that they do, like as an assessment thing. So I do that. The next one of them is starting in March 2026, because I'm currently working with a cohort now. So I only just run one of them every 15 months. I also do short courses online. So I'll do like an introduction to shamanism. I'll do an introduction to somatic therapies and somatic body-centered work. I do an introduction to ancestral healing work, and some of the little bits and pieces just online. At the moment, I haven't got any short courses running because I've just got stuff.
Busy woman.
Yeah, I've got stuff to sort out over the next sort of 6 months or so. But also I do in Liverpool and on the Wirral, I do like ceremonies and retreats and workshops and stuff like that.
Because I've seen you have you been guests, like a guest facilitator on other people's retreats, or you collaborate with people?
Yeah, I collaborate. I collaborate with a woman called Anne Archer, and at Holistic Health. Oh, sorry, Anne, I've forgotten your website.
Well, we can put the.
I can add that. Yeah,
we can add that in. I'll put that into the show list. And
yeah. So me and her do like full moon fire ceremonies together. She does body talk and different therapies. So we blend stuff really nice, and we do retreats. And I'll do shamanism. And I'll teach yoga. I'm a yoga teacher as well. And I don't know if I got to that, but in my biography, I didn't know. I hadn't got to it. So we do stuff like that together. And I've been doing a few workshops locally in Speak as well in Liverpool at the moment.
So lots of opportunities to engage with your work.
Yeah.
Did you list all this on your website?
Well,
or social media?
It's not my best skill. Yeah, I'll put some stuff on Instagram when I'm doing stuff like that. The other big project I've got at the moment, which is really, really exciting, and I've finally done it. I've been asked to do this for years and years, but I'm writing a book about it all.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
when's that due?
I don't know, next year maybe.
Okay, what's in the book? Without giving too much away.
Yeah, so the main part of it is going to be case studies, so showing how this work facilitates change in people. So I'm going to write some case studies from my clients. They're going to write some first-hand case studies, but each of it's going to be in a different section, like a section on shamanism, section on yoga, Taoism, somatic therapy, neuroscience, the science of this work and how that's changing. There'll be a little bit of my biography that's sort of threads throughout there, the reasons why I've pulled all of these streams together and created this modality that that works really well. And a few other little bits and pieces which I'll keep as a surprise.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Some philosophical things and
There's a lot going on.
framing it in it. Yeah, I'm really, really excited by that. So once the book's out, I want to get this. I've been toying with getting this stuff out more and more and more, but as the years roll on and I have all these incredible experiences with people one-to-one, I just think actually this work needs to be out there.
100%. Can I share something with you about yourself?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things that really become very apparent to me when Maria was talking about like your work, and when I started seeing you and then I met you. It's almost like, I'm not saying you're hidden away, but it's like I experienced Christine as something like really expansive and powerful. But like it's quite hard to, I would never have found you. Only because Maria told me about you and I believe that it was meant to be. But like, it's hard, it would have been hard to find you.
Yeah.
So it's important for you to get out there.
It is, yeah. And I kind of get that. And, you know, the whole Instagram thing, I mean, I love the way your posts are like real daily reflections and you're talking to people all the time. And I've, you know, obviously thought, is that something I could do? And do you know what? I just don't have the capacity at the moment to do it.
Not for everyone.
Yeah. It's I definitely need to make my presence more visible, but that's the seagulls in the background, by the way. And the kids screaming. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is get this book out and really explain it all to people and hopefully get some readers. And I'd like to get, you know, fingers crossed, one of the bigger publishers and get it out there.
Yeah.
And
then it's out into the world then, isn't it?
Yeah, and then I can keep teaching people and you know, I'm slowly developing a cohort of somatic shamanism practitioners who can then, you know, get the work out there more and more, because obviously, you know, time is limited, you know.
It's legacy, isn't it? It's like you can get to the end of your life and really genuinely say, I was of service and this has been my service to the world and brought something that's maybe made a big difference and continues to ripple out.
Absolutely.
As a body of work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember you talking about activism in some way, and it is important to me. I was very political when I was younger, and I was, you know, out canvassing and campaigning and going on demos and marches and stuff like that. But, you know, your contribution can be all kinds of things, can't it? You know, being of service and being active in the world can be all different ways. And I think actually this is my way, you know. Now that I'm obviously in my mid-50s, with hindsight, as you get older, you start to look back and realise all the twists and turns in your life and what they've brought you to and what your purpose is. A lot of people kind of want to know what their purpose is and want to look for it in your 20s and 30s, and that's fine, and I understand that. But for me, it took me until my mid-50s to realise what it was, because sometimes it takes a long time.
Yeah, it can do. I mean, I'm 47. It's only really starting to blossom into me now, and it's like, and I've done a lot of work like you have over the years. That it's it almost it moves through you. And like, and I'm not saying that when I say this, I'm not saying that it's like you're old, but you're in the realm of the elder. You're moving into like that realm of the crone, where there's a deeper movement moving through you, where you can't not be of service.
Yeah.
It's like there's a richness in your experience in your life. Because this, again, I talked about this the other day with someone else that who interviewed me for a podcast. Again, just mind getting your perspective is that, like, you know, when we look at more indigenous traditions, more traditional peoples, they've got initiation and rites of passage and strong elder philosophy and structures that passes that wisdom down to younger people who then become the elders. We've lost that. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because I believe, my perception of you is that this is an important part of you and your work is to be that elder and to pass that down, and through like your book and your courses is to help reweave eldership back into Western society.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does that
Definitely.
resonate?
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And one of the things I mentioned to you before, you know, I for many years I was an oral historian for National Museums Liverpool and some museums in the Northwest in Manchester and Salford, and I interviewed like hundreds of people's life stories, and not just older people, there was some younger as well, but I was really blown away when I would speak to the elders about their life, because every life is an epic journey. I really believe that. Every single life.
But think about it. I just thought I just want to jump in really quickly.
Yeah.
Because it just popped in my head. When you think about like in our communities, how many people who will get to old age and just be completely isolated, like no support, like just dying like lonely people, when they might have had all these rich life experiences that have just lost that knowledge. Sorry, just to come up.
No,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And when I was doing oral history, I was saying to everyone, we've got the technology now. Sit down and record your grandparents or your great grandparents. Wow. Ask them about their life, because there's so much in it.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, there's so much in it. And in that way, for me, that is one way now that we can re-establish that kind of oral tradition of passing wisdom, which would have been
our ancestors.
Absolutely.
Wow, I don't know why when you've said that just then, like I knew about the oral history, but like to record your grandparents, and we've got a device in our hand that can do that, and to have that capture so that when they pass you can still have those stories. Wow.
Yeah. And actually, beautiful. That is one of the things I still do. I still do oral history commissions, and
you get paid to do that as well.
Yeah.
What a job.
And train people up in oral history techniques. Yeah. And you've done a marvellous job today, by the way. Very good.
Christine, I've just got a genuine curiosity, and I've just I'm a seeker. Do you know what I mean? So I love hearing people's experiences. But I just want to bring this to a close now. It's been an incredible interview. Maybe we can do this again in the lead up to you launching the book, which I'd love. You know, we talk about some of these case studies and some of these experiences and go a little bit deeper. But if there's one thing that someone could take away, something practical, some practical advice, one thing, what could you share with the people who are listening? One thing they could take away and do around their own healing or their own self-awareness.
Yeah, do you know what? The main practice that I do every day, all day, every day, to some level, which I think is the most important thing to do, is to be aware of where your thoughts are.
What does that mean?
Well, they reckon we get about 60,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah, scientists, you mean?
Yeah. Between 60 and 70,000. So that just means that just things are just constantly popping in and out of your mind. And one of the things that I've realized when working with people is they often latch on to a thought and then start to spiral with it. You know, they become engaged in that thought, they treat it like it's real. And actually, meditation and the knowledge that we have 60,000 of them a day show us that thoughts are just transient. They just come and go. And they can just come and go. And sometimes, you know, they can be really fearful and anxious, and there might be a part of us that's got an issue or whatever. But for the main, well, even those parts, we don't have to latch onto the thoughts and really engage with them and start to spiral with them. We can just have that witness of the thoughts, notice, you know, like if a fearful thought comes up or if a worry comes up, I'll just go, oh, that's interesting, and I'll just watch it, and then I'll just let it dissipate, because that's what it does. It'll dissipate, and then you'll get another 10,000 thoughts in the next few hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's plenty more to latch onto if you wanted to. Yeah, wow.
And I think that's the thing, you know, with this work, we get into stories and we start telling ourselves stories. And I think if you just hold your thoughts and your stories lightly, then your mental health will become so much better.
You heard it here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. It's almost as well with the holding it, that it just allows it to move through, and then it's like it just settles. That's been my experience of it.
Absolutely.
Wow, thank you. Well, Christine, it's been amazing.
It's been lovely.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Sitting here looking out at the River Mersey. Yeah, we picked a really nice spot.
Yeah.
A really nice spot to have a rich and deep conversation. I just feel really honoured that you've took this time out to share your wisdom and your experience with me, and yeah, we'll do it again, hopefully.
Great.
But yeah, I'll leave in the show notes. I'll leave all Christine's details, her socials, and her website. Check out her work, and then we'll wait for this book to be published sometime next year. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, Neil.